Hi, everybody. This is very exciting. Welcome to CoderDojo Ham's special Christmas festive online session. And I'm Peter, and I'm joined by Richard and Aya and Phoebe and Danny. We've got a special Advent of Code sandwich today. So we're starting off with Aya's Advent of Code project with using Python. If you don't know about Advent and Code already, then I will show you how that works. And then Danny and Phoebe are going to show you how to build a snowflake generator with Scratch. And then to wrap up, Richard will look at solving Advent of Code puzzles with Scratch, because you can use any language to join in the fun. And these will use some of the puzzles from previous years, because Advent of Code for 2021 hasn't gone live yet. But will do from the 1st of December, just like an Advent calendar you eat or put up on the wall. Anyway, I hand over to Aya. Have a fantastic afternoon, and I'll see you at the end to wrap up.
Okay, thank you very much, Richard. Hi, everyone. Today, I'm going to be going over some Advent of Code stuff with you in Python. So that's what we're looking at just now. Now, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we can get started. So what we are looking at here is the main Advent of Code page. And this is what you will get if you go to adventofcode.com. So as you can see, that's a URL that also would have been sent out to you. And this is where we can get started. So this is the Advent of Code page. Now, what we're going to be looking at today is a day from last year's Advent of Code, because as you can see here, we haven't actually started this year's yet. They release it on December 1st for the first time, and then we'll get 25 puzzles throughout the year, throughout the month, and we can complete one puzzle every day. Richard has also put some incredible videos on Advent of Code and getting started with it and navigating the website on the CoderDojo YouTube channel, which I also very much recommend watching because they are very helpful. So once you're logged into your account and you're set up, if you go to the events button at the top here, you'll see all of our previous years. Now, our previous years, we're going to be looking at a puzzle from 2020 today. And here is where we can see all of the days. Now, 2020 was a little bit weird for Advent of Code. The days didn't go in the correct order as we look down, but we're going to be looking for day 4 here. And this is the puzzle we're going to be looking at today. So this puzzle today, it's quite an interesting one, because this makes a lot of use of string manipulation and reading in some information to the program. Before we even do anything with it, we have to read it in properly and get all of our data set up quite nicely in order to actually be able to use it. So let's go ahead and take a look at our puzzle. We've arrived at a passport, and we realize that we don't have our passport with us. We only have our North Pole credentials. We've made a mistake there. And while these documents are very similar, we can't actually use the passport on the airport. And we're not the only one having problems. Other people in the line in front of us are also having some troubles. So what we're going to do is we're going to write a little bit of code that will let us, of course, start moving this line a little bit faster. We're going to, due to some questionable network security, we are going to make some changes to the code that is looking at the passports. So we get here some information regarding how the passports are constructed. So we have a birth year, we have an issue year, we have an expiration year, we have a person's height, hair color, eye color, passport ID, and country ID. And we need to use all of these to build up our passports and ultimately scan them in to make sure the passports are valid to get us through the line. And what we're eventually going to do, so our passports look like this. They are in this format. They are separated by lines. So as you can see, we have a passport here with an eye color of gray, a passport ID here. We have an expiration year. We have a hair color, which is a hex code. We have our birth year. We have our issue year. we have our country ID, and we have a height. And each passport has this information in it, formatted kind of interestingly. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to be using Trinket for this. And the absolute first thing that we want to do is actually start getting that information in. So what we're going to do is copy all of these examples here. Because Advent of Code, what this gives us is some input data that we then modify and do stuff with the input data to eventually, ultimately, get to an answer. So, for instance, we can see here that we would have 2 valid passports in this list based on what we've been told here. So we're going to read this in, and we're going to write some code that will validate these passports and hopefully give us the correct answer. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you have a tab here, and we're going to call this input.txt. And we're going to paste our input data in just like so. And what this is going to let us do is now actually start using this data in order to start writing some code with it. So back in our main tab here, the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to read in the data. We're going to make a new variable, and we're going to call it data. Let me make the screen a little bit bigger here, just to make sure everyone can see it, because I know that Trinket can be kind of small. Okay, so hopefully that's readable for everybody. Right. So now we're going to open up this information, and we're going to open input.txt. And this is the input method in Python, and we're going to import it with the letter R as a second method here, which means we're reading it in as a readable piece of data. And then we're going to do .readlines, and what this is going to do is just read in all of the data. So now if we just print our data here, we'll see that our data is now being printed in. Now this isn't very pretty, but you can see that this is our data. We've got our eye color, we've got our passport IDs, we have our expiration year, we have our hair color, we have our birth year, our issue year, our country ID, and our height. So we can see that this is being read in as we expect. So now we actually have to do some stuff with this. We have to now actually use this data in an efficient manner. So the first thing we want to do is understand that each thing that we pass in is its own passport. So if we say for line in data and print each line, what we will see is that we now have all of this data coming in a much nicer format. So using this, we can now begin actually reading in our data. So what the first thing we want to do is, of course, we're going to have an array of passports. So we're going to make a new variable here, which is just an empty array using our square brackets, meaning this will contain multiple things. We can add more things to this as we move on. And we're going to also have a single passport variable that we will be modifying as we go. Now, there's a few ways we can do this. There's several approaches and methods that we can take to read in our passports. We can use an object-oriented approach by making passport objects, or we can do my personal favorite way, which is to just use a hash map. And that's what these curly braces are here. We are creating an empty hash map. So a hash map is just a piece of data that's very similar to an array. It contains multiple things, and each thing is a set of pairs, a key and a value. So if we look at our passport information here, we can see that we can have a key of ECL for eye color and a value of GRY for gray. And then we can also have our passport have a key of PID, which is our passport ID, and the value of 8600 33327 here as the value. So this lends itself very nicely to setting up key and value pairs in passport hash maps, which we can then access very easily to make sure our passports are all valid when we're scanning them through. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to know how to differentiate two passports. And we can do that by looking at the blank lines here. If there is a blank line or two blank lines between each passport, we know that we're moving on to a new passport. So we can use an if statement here. And we can just say if line does not equal \n, and \n is Python's way of saying, is it a new line character? So whenever you press enter on the keyboard, you're inserting a \n new line character. And that's what these blank lines here are doing. So if it's not one of those, we know it's part of the same passport. And now we're going to look at one individual line of the passport. So we can see here, one individual line is some information, an eye color, a passport ID, an expiration year, and a hair color. And these are all separated by spaces. So we can use this to actually loop over our passport information. So if we say for, and let's call it data in line.split by space, we can now look at each piece of data individually. So our data here will equal this ECL gray, and then this, our passport ID, and then this, and then this. So we are now looping over each individual little bit of passport information that we can now actually start doing some stuff with. So we can first of all make our key. So we're going to get our key from this, and as we've said, our keys will be eye color, passport ID, expiration year, and hair color. So we can do that by saying data.split by colon to get everything before the colon, and then 0. So the first thing is the key. And then we're also going to just perform .strip on this to remove any kind of blank spaces that might still be left over as a result. And then we can do the same thing for our values. We can say our value is data.split by the colon 1. So now we have a key of ECL and a value of gray. And using this, we can now say that the passport key will equal the value. So now what we're saying is the passport key of, in this case, eye color will equal gray. And the passport ID will equal this big long string here. And the passport expiration year will equal 2020. And by doing that, we are now giving our passport the information. So we've actually started building up a passport already here, but what do we do once we hit a new line and we know we're finished with the passport? We can now say else, if it is a new line, if we're done with the passport, we can take our passports array and we can append our passport onto the end of it. So now we are actually adding our passport to the end. So now we take our passport that we've just created and we store it in the passports variable. But now we are left with a passport that still has lots of information in there. So when we move on to the next one, it will have a lot of information left over. So we can fix that by just saying our passport will now equal a new empty array, a new empty hash map with our curly braces here, and we will start again. So what we are doing now is we're creating lots and lots of new passports. And now if we run this and we print out our passports array, actually let's say for P in passports, print P. And if I run this now, we should ideally get 5 very prettily made passports printed out with all of their values. So let's give this a quick run. As you can see, we now have all of these hash maps with our passports in very nicely. Okay, so now all we have to do is validate which of these passports are actually correct. So let's go back and look at the puzzle. To tell if a passport is valid, let me actually bring this over here like so you can still see the code on one side. And then that way. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. No, it's not playing ball. Okay, let's leave that here. So let's bring our Advent code puzzle back up here. And let's see. So To tell if a passport is valid, it must have all 8 fields. So the length of each passport must be 8. However, interestingly, if a passport doesn't have a CID, which is a country ID saying we're not from the North Pole, basically, that should be okay because our passport doesn't have this, and then we're trying to get through the line. So that's what we want to do. So if a passport has all 8 fields, it's valid and it can go through. If it only has 7 fields, but it doesn't have a CID, that's also valid. But if it has 7 fields and 1 or less than 8 fields, and it does have a CID, it's not valid. So those are our rules. So we have to now write those rules in. And there's a few ways we can do this. But the easiest way is to just loop over all of our passports and take a look. So the first thing we're going to do is append our last passport to the end here, because I can see that we only had 3 and we should have 4. So now let's check to make sure that's going okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, that's all of our passports. Wonderful. And now let's start looping over these to make sure it's working and it's okay. So the first thing we want to do is for P in passports, we want to now look at each passport. So what we're going to do is have a new variable here, and we're going to call this valid passports. I'm trying to keep everything on screen here for you. So valid passports. And this is going to equal 0 to begin with. Now for every passport, we're going to check if it's a valid passport. And if it's a valid passport, we are going to add 1 to it. So the first thing we know, if all 8 fields are there, we know it's a valid passport. So if len p equals 8, we're going to do valid passports plus equals 1, because we know that's a valid passport. Now we have some slightly trickier stuff. I should do if len p equals 8. Now we have some slightly trickier stuff, because now if the len is 7, we have to check if it has a CID. And there's a few ways we can do this, but what we can do is use the in function in Python to check if something is in our hash map. And the easiest way for us to do this is to just say if CID, which is what we're looking for here, is in the passport. Or let's say if not in the passport. So if CID not in the passport, we know it's valid now as well, because if it's got a length of 7 but there's no CID, we're going to let that slide because that's what our passport looks like and we want to get through this line. So we're going to go ahead and say this passport will be valid. And that's everything. And otherwise, the passport is not valid, and as a result, we're going to ignore every other passport. So if we now, at the very end here, print out valid passports, if we look at our exercise one more time, we will see that we should have 2 valid passports. So when we run this, hopefully, if we've done everything right, we should see the number 2 print to the console here. So let's find out. We got the number 2, meaning that 2 of our passports are valid. So let's say that 2 plus of our passports are valid. There we go. So now when we run this, we will see that, oh, no, of course, I need to do string valid passports. There we go. 2 of our passports are valid. Okay, so now we've got this working for the test input. We know that the code is working fine because we've taken a test input that we've been given by the advent of code, and we have seen that we have the right answer. Now we're going to get our puzzle input. And this is a lot more complicated. As you can see, we have a lot more passports here, But if everything is working okay, we should, in theory, be able to copy all of this. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We're just going to copy all of this data here, every single line of it. And we are going to copy that into our input here. Now, assuming we have done everything correctly, the answer we get as a result here should be correct. I'm a bit nervous now because I haven't tested this code and I don't know if this is going to work. So let's find out. Let's go back to the advent of code and type in our answer. The answer we got was 254 of our passports are valid. So let's go and type in 254 to the advent of code website and hope that it gives us the correct answer. That's the right answer. There we go. So, of course, our code has worked here and we have got our first gold star. So that's wonderful. Now, I'm going to give you all a little bit of time to take a look at that and try it for yourself. I'm going to get you all to try it for yourself now and see if your code is working to get your first stars. And I'm just going to be jumping onto the Twitch chat very shortly so I can take a look and see that you're all getting your stars. So just let me know if you've gotten it. And while you're doing that, we're going to start looking at the second part of the puzzle, because there is now a second part to our puzzle that we need to start tackling. And this is where things get a little bit trickier. So we're going to take it quite slowly and just go through that. Okay. So let's look at our puzzle. Continue on to part 2. So now we have part 2 of our puzzle here. And let's give this a quick read. So the line is now moving more quickly, but we overhear airport security talking about how passports with invalid data are still getting through. So we've made a mistake here. We have got all of the passports through, but there are some that don't have the correct data that aren't being checked properly. So now we're going to actually want to check those. So let's take a look at actually how the passport data is formatted. We're going to continue ignoring the CID field because our one doesn't have that and we still want to get through that. A link to the code. Let me just get that share link for you. So this code will be just there for you. I've sent that through to Danny and Phoebe, and hopefully they can get that through to you, the person asking for the code. I'm just trying to get into our chat here so I can see what's happening. So, I can see that somebody wrote in 254 and it said it was incorrect. Now, let me explain why that's the case. Everyone will get slightly different input data. So the input data that we've got in here will be different for everybody. For instance, the first time I did this puzzle last year, I believe my answer was 111. So you need to take your input data that we have here, run it through our code, and it will generate a new answer. So you will have a different answer to what I have. So you'll need to make sure that you've taken your input data from Advent of Code, you've ran it through the code that we're writing here, and you're printing out your answer, which is what we're doing here, and then you type in your answer to the Advent of Code, and then you will get your first star. So that's why if you've typed in 254, you might not be getting the right answer. Hopefully that helps explain that for you. But I've now given you a link to the code that you can use to go and now run your own input data through the code and hopefully get your first star. So hopefully that's helpful for you. So let's start now looking at our second question. So each piece of data has to be validated to make sure it matches the correct format. So for instance, our birth year must be 4 digits between 1920 and 2002. So let's now write that. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to now make a new method. So I'm actually going to rename this to main.2 and main old.py, because we're going to be making a lot of changes to our code here and I want to just keep our first question here. So let's actually call this main part 1. Okay. And now we're going to start working on main part 2. So what we want to do now is delete this bit of validation at the end here, because this validation is no longer correct. We have to do this in a new way. So we're going to do this by writing our own method here in Python to validate our passports. So we're going to define a method of validate passport, and we're going to pass in a passport as a variable. Okay, so now that we read this all in, we can now start actually validating our passports using this method. So the first thing we want to validate is our birth year. Our birth year must be 4 digits, and then it must be a number between 1920 and 2002. And if it's not that, then the passport isn't valid. We won't let that go through. So let's make that happen. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have a new running variable, of course, called valid passports, just like before. And we're going to first of all check the birth year. So the birth year is going to be, well, first of all, we need to know, of course, if the passport is valid to begin with, based on our original first question, which is, of course, if there are less than 8 pieces of data. So if the length of the passport is less than 7, or if the length of the passport is equal to 7 and CID is not in the passport. So if is in it, sorry. So if our length is less than 7, or it's 7 and CID is there, then we know the passport is not valid. So as a result, we are going to return false. Okay, and this is our way of saying this passport is not valid in this method. If ever we return false, we are saying this passport is not valid. So now let's check for our birth year. As we've seen before, our birth year must be between 1920 and 2002. So let's write that. So if our passport, so let's say if int passport birth year, if our passport birth year is, and it cannot be less than 1920. So if it's less than 1920, or if our int passport birth year is greater than 2002, then we know this is not a valid passport. So this is us saying if our birth year is less than 1920, or our birth year is greater than 2002, we're going to return false, because we know this passport is not valid now. So let's look at the next thing that might cause a problem with our passports. The next thing that might cause a problem with our passport is the issue year, and this needs to be between 2010 and 2020. So we can reuse this bit of code here to compare it in a different way. We can now say if our issue year, which is IYR, and this needs to be between 2010 and 2020. So let's say that 2010 and 2020, we're going to return false, because we now know if the issue year is not between these two numbers, the passport's invalid. We're going to say, sorry, passport, you're not valid. Now we're moving on to our next thing that we have to check, which is our expiration year. And this is again very similar. Our expiration year must be between 2020 and 2030. So once again, we can reuse our code here. Our expiration year this time we're checking, and it's going to be between 2020 and 2030. So we now have 3 lines. This line checks our birth year. This line checks our issue year. And this year checks our expiration year. And if none of them match the correct format, they will return false, because these are what they can be. So now we're going to be checking the height, and this is where things get a little bit more complicated. So our centimeter, if our height can either be in centimeters or in inches. Okay, so and then if it's in centimeters, there must be at least 150 and at most 193. Now, I know people that are shorter than 150 centimeters and they have a passport. So this is very confusing to me, but we're going to follow the rules as they're written for now. But if it's in inches, we have to read the numbers differently and say it must be between 59 and 76. So let's ignore inches for now. And let's just write some code for checking for centimeters. So next we're going to say if the letters C and M are in the passport height. So if the passport's height has the letters of CM in there, we know it wants to be handled in centimeters. And what we're going to say, and then we're going to say otherwise, else, we're going to handle it as if it's inches. Okay, so, or optionally, what we can do actually is say, or if in is in passport height. So we're checking to make sure that the unit of measurement is there first. So if there is no unit of measurement in our area's height, so if it doesn't say centimeters or it doesn't say inches, or if it says something else, if it says feet, then we're going to ignore it and say it's not valid. So what we're going to do is now, otherwise, if that's not in there, we're going to say now we're going to say if it's CM. So if it is CM in the passport height, and now we're going to handle just centimeters for the time being. So if centimeters are in there, we're going to say our height equals, and this is where we're going to remove the centimeters from our height and just look at the number alone. So our height will equal an integer of passport height, and we're going to replace the instance of centimeters with nothing. So this is kind of a complex little statement here. So let's break this down. What we're saying is we're going to take our passport height. We're going to remove the letters centimeters from there. We're going to ignore, and just get the number. And then we're going to convert that number into an integer within Python in order to be able to now compare it to something. And now we can say if height is less than, what was our minimum height? Our minimum height is 150. Or if height is greater than 193, we're going to return false, because we know that this passport's not valid. And now we're going to do the same thing for our inches. So we're going to say elif in is in the passport height. Now we're going to just check the same thing for the inches. So we can copy all of this code here and we can paste it in. And now we can just modify it for our inches. So the first thing to do is turn centimeters here into inches and now modify these two numbers for our inches. So first of all, our minimum inch is 59. So we're going to remove that. And our maximum inch is 76. So now we can say that if a person is not within these bounds, then it's not a valid passport. So that's what we're going to do. And then we're going to say If centimeters or inches are not in there, we're going to return false. Okay, now let's break this up here. And now let's start checking the next thing. So this is now saying, all of this code here is validating that our height area is all working fine. And now the next thing we're going to do is look at hair color. So hair color must be a hash symbol followed by exactly 6 characters. And these characters must be 0 to 9, or must be a number, or they must be between the letters A and F. And those of you that know hexadecimal or know hex color codes will recognize this as being that the hair color is being represented as a hexadecimal number, which is very difficult to do, actually, because everyone's hair is always a slightly different color depending on how you look at it. Maybe we can take averages, who knows? But that's what we're going to be using for this exercise. So first of all, we have to make sure that the hair color begins with the hash symbol. So that's what we're going to check. The first thing we're going to do is say if the passport's hair color is and the first letter of the passport's hair color is equal to a hash, then we are good to go. Else, we're going to return false. Okay, so if the first letter of the hair color is a hash, then we're going to return false. Then we're going to be okay. But if not, we're going to return false because we know that it must be a hash followed by exactly these numbers. So now let's start actually checking that the numbers are correct, that there are exactly 6 digits and they are not outside of the letters A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, and that they are actually a number. So what we can say first of all is we're going to say now that color equals color dot replace the hashtag with nothing. And now that we know we're removing this from the color, so we can start comparing the color properly. No, we're going to say p.hair color replace, just like so. So now that we have our color as the string of numbers that it's supposed to be, now we're going to start looking at the color. So we're going to say for letter in color, and we're going to look at each individual letter. Well, actually, the first thing we should do before we do that is if len color is not equal to 6, because it must have exactly 6 characters, we are going to return false. Because if there's 5 numbers or there's 7 numbers, then the passport's not valid anymore. So we need to remove that. So now we're going to start looking over the colors. So we're going to say for letter in color. And now we're going to look at each letter individually. So every letter or every character in there must either be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or the number 0 to 9. So there are some really nice ways in Python to do this. So we're going to say, first of all, if letter is not in A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and let's also say then it's false. We can return false, but we can also say and not letter dot is numeric, and this says is the letter 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, and if it's not, then it will also not work. If none of these are correct, if the letter is not numeric or it's not between A and G, then passport's false. We know that the passport will no longer work, so we can return false and say that this passport is no good to us here. And we're really getting close to having this done now. We only have 3 more things left to check, which is the eye color, the passport ID, and the country ID. And we can ignore the country ID. So we only actually have to check the eye color and the passport ID now. So we're getting very close to having a completely valid passport here, a completely valid passport checked. So let's go back to full screen here. Now let's start looking at the next thing, which is our eye color. And it must be exactly either amber, blue, brown, gray, green, hazel, or other. If it's not exactly one of those, then it's not valid. And this is very easy for us to check. What we can say is if the passport I've made a mistake here. So I've got lots of P's here. I need to replace with passport. And I've done that correct everywhere else. Yep. Okay, so if passport eye color, ECL, is not in. So if passport ECL is not in, and what are our things? We can actually just copy this in. So let's now make an array of colors here. So this is saying now, here are all the colors that our eyes are allowed to be. And if it's not one of these, then it's not a valid passport, right? So we're going to say that. There we go. So now our passports are all being validated as being in the right color. And if it's not the case, we will return false. So if our eye color is not present here, we're going to return false. Nice and easy. And now we've only got one last thing to check, which is our passport ID. It must be a 9-digit number, including leading zeros. So what that means is we need to check that there are exactly 9 digits in the passport ID, and it must be a number, and including all the leading zeros, it must be 9. So there's a few ways we can check this, but this is the absolute easiest way that we're going to go about now. So we're going to now say if, then we're going to say our passport ID. We're going to just make a passport ID variable here. This is going to equal passport.pid because things will get kind of complicated soon. So we're going to now just make sure we've got a passport ID variable that we can use to very easily track this. So here's what we're going to do. The first thing we're going to do is check that that the passport ID equals 9. The length of it equals 9. So if the length of passport ID equals 9, because it has to be exactly 9 characters, and it's entirely numeric. There are no letters in there, and we've used this before. We can say passport ID dot is numeric. Right, so is numeric. Okay, so now we're saying if the length is exactly 9 and it's numeric, we're going to work with it. Else, we're going to return false. Okay, so this is now checking that all of our passports is completely correct. Now, the last thing we're going to do is just make sure that the number is essentially below 10 million, I think. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to say that if our passport, does G have to be included? I'm not sure what you mean by G. Does G have to be included? Let's take a look at the input here. PID, where are we seeing G? I'm unsure what you mean by that. I'm sorry. Does G have to be included? G in the colors hex. Oh, yes, you're correct. No, it doesn't. You're correct. Thank you. You've noticed the mistake I made there. It must be A to F. G cannot be a hex color. Thank you. Thank you for noticing that. I made a mistake in my code there. That would have been an interesting one for us to debug when I ran the code and realized that something was being valid that shouldn't have been. I was letting a G through. So we are running out of time here, but luckily we're coming very close to the end. So the last thing we're going to do now is check if our passport ID is less than 10 million or 100 million. This is basically saying if it's a 9-digit number, if it's a 9-digit numeric number, and so if it's less than this, and if the first number isn't a 0, then we're going to return false. So if passport ID does not equal passport ID 0 does not equal 0. So essentially, if the number is less than 9 digits long, but it doesn't have a leading 0, then we know it's a false passport. So we're going to say false. And now we've checked every passport. This is everything. This now validates everything according to the rules we have been given. So the last thing to do, once all of this is done, once it's passed all of these checks, is to return true. And this means that we now have a method that we can pass a passport into and check if it's valid. So we now have our array of passports that we read in here. We have a valid passports variable, and now we have a method that validates our passport. So we're now going to use that method. We're going to say for passports in passports, if it'll be if validate, what have I called it? Validate passports. If this is correct, then valid passports will be incremented by 1. And that's it. This is going to check every passport and validate it all to make sure it's all okay. And in an ideal world, what we can say is if valid passport, so I'll print out our valid passports are valid. So now let's compare this to a test input before we do anything else. So we know that so these were passports. So these are all invalid passports. So let's test this. If I test this and I get 0, I know that it's working fine. So let's run this. Oh no, I've got an error on line 25. What have I done here? Okay, that's all that is. I've done the same thing here on line 28, haven't I? Yes. And that means I'll also have the same thing here. Okay. That's fine. Name P is not defined on line 20. I'm debugging my code live here. This is what it looks like. Okay, so len passport. Okay. This looks good. 0 of our passports are valid. Wonderful, that's what we wanted. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 valid passports. Hopefully this will give us the number 4. Line 45. Okay. And I have this to be an integer here, and 4 of our passports are valid. Wonderful. So we now know our code is all working fine. Let's go ahead and let's go ahead and run this against our inputs and see how we do. Let's hopefully get our next star here. According to my code, I have 184 valid passports. I'm getting a bit nervous now. Let's see if this is correct. That's the right answer. There we go. We got our second gold star. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the link to be given to you ninjas. There's I've dropped the link that will hopefully be put into the chats for you, so you can access this code here, run this against your own input data, check all of your passports, get your answer, and hopefully get your second star. We are now coming very short on time, so I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been following along. Hopefully you got all of your stars. Hopefully this has been a really good taster to the advent of code for you and a nice introduction to some of the really cool things we can do with Python for validating strings and integers. We've got another really cool session coming up for you after this, where Danny and Phoebe are going to be working in Scratch with you to, I believe, make a snowflake generator. So I'm going to be passing it over now to Danny and Phoebe. Thank you all so much, and I hope you've enjoyed doing the Advent of Code.
Hello, thank you for that, Aya. Yes, we are going to be showing you how to make an awesome snowflake. So you can see what we're going to make, I'm just going to share a screen. It's going to look a little bit like this. So this is a bit of a, here's one we made earlier.
Yeah. Pressing the button.
So you're going to get a unique fresh snowflake each time.
Oh, press.
And I guess let's get into it.
To show them?
Oh yeah, let's press the button. It's a good point. So each time you hit the button, you get a new snowflake.
Very cool.
Let's get into it. So let's hit create. So we have a fresh new Scratch project.
Mind passing me the mouse?
Yep. So Phoebe's going to throw our blocks for us.
All right, so first, to get set up, let's go to scratch.mit.edu and click create to get yourself a blank project like this.
Scratch.mit.edu. And Scratch sprites like the Scratch Cat can actually be used to draw lines.
I just realized you can't see my cursor. Okay. To start drawing, hit the Scratch extensions button down here and click pen. Pick the pen ability. It's a Scratch. I can't. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, when you're in the Scratch extensions, if you pick the pen ability, you can draw with sprites like Scratch Cat.
Pretty much. To start with, let's.
So I mean, this gives you a new set of blocks.
Yep. Here.
And you can use those to make lines with our sprites.
Mm-hmm. So to start with, I think we'll get we'll get the when flag click button from the events section, and we'll drag it in to start our code. And start drawing, we'll go to the pen tab and grab the pen down block. We'll also grab from the motion block, move steps. I think 10 is a little bit small. I think the cat will just cover the whole thing. So let's make it 50. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And what about we pull the pen up afterwards?
Good idea. So we don't just keep drawing when we don't want to.
Let's see what happens. There we go. Just got a little bit there.
So we got Scratch Cat moving, and he's drawn a tiniest little line behind him.
Very small.
And if you click the flag again,
and he'll just continue drawing.
There we go. So he just keeps adding steps. Cool. So since we're drawing with lines, I don't think we want a big cat in the way. So should we hide it?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. The big cat is... I don't think it's a good idea for him to stay. So let's make it hide just before the pen down.
So that's in the looks tab.
Yep.
And you dropped a hide block in there before the pen down.
Yeah.
So cool. It's still off the screen.
Yeah, it will just continue going no matter what. So what about we make it go to, I don't know, the middle of the screen?
Middle of the screen sounds good.
Sounds good.
That's cool.
See what happens now.
We can't see anything changing. Because we need to erase the old lines. So in the pen tab.
In the pen tab, we'll grab the erase all, and I think we'll put that just above the hide, if I can.
So before we start drawing anything, we can now click it, and it'll start from the center. Cool. So we've got a line.
Yeah, but to make it a snowflake, we'll need a few more lines, right?
Oh, yeah. So Snowflake has got 6 lines, or at least starts with 6 lines. And that's cool. A sixth of a whole circle is 60. So we're going to need a rotation of 60 degrees.
Let's go to the control tab and grab... I pressed the wrong tab. Let's go to the control tab and make it repeat this part. We'll make it repeat 6 times because, as Dad explained, it's a sixth of a whole circle. But it'll just continuously make that one line. So I think we're going to need to rotate it to make it actually turn the right way.
Yeah.
So we'll make that 60.
Yep. Run that.
There we go.
And we now got 6 spokes of a wheel. Very cool.
Very cool.
I mean, it's more snowflake-like, but it's not quite a snowflake yet. I think it needs some detail.
Yeah, you're right. Also, reminder to save your progress and also test your code. Don't want to lose it if something goes wrong.
Cool. So we can add a bit more detail on the snowflake on each of its arms.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. So we have to use the same length. So let's put it into a variable. We can name the variable, well, what I think it should be named is flake size, but it doesn't really matter. Flake size.
Cool.
There we go.
And for all sprites, it's all good.
But let's just hide that for now.
Yeah.
And what do you think? 100?
I think 100. 50 is a bit small.
Yeah, agreed.
Ooh.
I pressed 0.
Why is it not?
I don't know. It won't type.
It won't type. It really won't type.
That is a problem.
Why is that glitching on us?
Our whole screen is frozen in terms of our camera. That's
We
awkward.
appear to be frozen.
Yeah, this isn't.
Is our keyboard dead?
Oh, our keyboard was off.
Keyboard was dead. Okay.
Oh, that makes sense.
There we go.
Okay.
Right.
We're back.
We're back.
Also, this is a bit small. I'm not sure if you can see it, so I'm just going to zoom in. That's extremely big, but good enough. Let's go. So now we can replace the move 50 steps block with the flake size, and we can see it will make a larger snowflake. There we go.
Cool.
Look at that. Cool.
All right. So we're saying we're going to do another line, and we want that somewhere between the middle of the snowflake and the outside.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool.
And we can divide it by 2, perhaps, to get somewhere halfway along.
We'll also we'll then put a. I can't read. We should also make sure that the line sticks out and isn't just like standing there. Like it sticks out like a.
Yeah, we want to make it stick out.
Subarm. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, all right. So first we'll, after the pen up, we'll put a go to 0 and move it back out the flake size so we can position the arm.
Good idea.
And that'll put us. Ooh,
Our keyboard seems to be dead again.
I might plug that in.
Yeah,
Are you having trouble with the keyboard? I didn't expect trouble with the keyboard.
that is awkward.
Slight technical issue. We're going to plug something else in.
Got it working for a minute.
I apologise.
Sorry about this. This is awkward. Wasn't expecting that. Oh, it's on low back.
Now have. It's fine.
There we go.
Right.
We're good. We're good. Now, like you said, we should do flake size. Make it move flake size divided by 2. So let's do that. Not go to. It's move. I'm sorry. And in the operators, that's where you'll find the divided by. Just make that 2. We'll keep some buying.
You got 22 there. Cool.
Then we'll divide it by
Drag
22.
flake size in.
Yeah, let's drag flake size in. And we got a little bit more to do. Let's make it turn 60 degrees twice.
So we're going to turn 60 degrees. So we're going to go 60 degrees the other way so we can do our tick.
Oh, that makes sense.
And that needs to come first before this turn.
Oh, there.
And now so that's moved us out to the thing and it's kind of turned us around. But now we want to draw a little way out.
Wait, that didn't work, did it?
That's because we haven't done the rest of it. So, right. So we've turned that back 60 degrees. Now we want to put our pen down.
Yep. Let's grab that.
And we'll start drawing a line and then we'll do a move block, I guess.
Move flake size divided by 4.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
I'm gonna
Duplicate that. Cool.
Just to,
I might want to make this slightly smaller, but I know that's all right. Okay.
it's good. Will it work a bit better?
It
I
will,
thought-
but we've still got another move to do after that. So if we do our pen up,
Pen up.
yeah,
Then
And-
make it 10.
we've turned an extra 60 degrees, so we need to turn another 60 degrees to reverse the one we've got plus the 60 we want for the other part.
There we go. That's it. So we got little arms, sub arms,
She's kind of half a snowflake.
but we kind of need the other arm. Am I right?
Absolutely. And now's another perfect time to test and save.
Yep. Let's see if your code works.
So we want to make it symmetric, but I think since they're in an arm, we're going to add some custom blocks to kind of divide stuff up before it gets complicated.
Yeah, because otherwise it will get messy and nobody knows. Nobody will know how your code will. Nobody will understand your code if it's really messy.
We are going to add a link, by the way, to the demonstration when we show at the beginning. Okay, so I guess we're going to make a custom function block.
So to start off, let's go to the My Blocks tab and let's create our function. I'm going to call it subarm left because it's a subarm.
And it turns left.
Yeah. Logic. Also, click run without screen refresh. What this will do is, well, what it says. It will run without screen refresh.
The screen refreshes will slow down the custom blocks, and we kind of want to keep it fast because we're going to be drawing quite a few when we get into the bigger snowflake.
Yep.
Cool.
So we've got the define up there. And now we can just drag from, I think, down under the 60 degrees here. No. It needs to be.
We want to drag.
Yeah, here.
Yep, that's it.
There we go. And we also want to call the function because otherwise what will it do? Stand there?
And we want to put one of those turn 60 degrees because one of those is undoing the turn in this subarm and one of those is turning to do the next item.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It shouldn't change anything, but it just makes it more neat.
That'll make it easier for what we're going to do next anyway. So if you run this, it'll look exactly the same. Do you want to make sure and run it?
I ran it already.
Ah, cool. I wasn't watching. There we go. Sweet.
Sweet. So now I think we'll need to. Well, it's one arm. We need to make it symmetric. Let's make it subarm right.
Cool. I guess
Make
it's basically pretty much a copy of the other one.
Pretty much, but a little bit different in terms of how it turns.
Okay.
So just going to name it subarm right to make it easy. And I think I'm going to duplicate this.
Yep.
And change a few of the turn.
Guess we could just swap them over, right?
Yeah. Plunk. And put that there.
Like that.
There we go.
And don't forget to call it.
Oh, yeah. I did the silly move of not calling it. Well done, me.
Oh, that's looking like a snowflake.
Or at least it does. But what about we add some more detail?
So don't forget to put your questions in the comments if you've got any questions. Hopefully you've gotten as far as we've got so far. But do let us know if you're feeling stuck at all here.
All right, now I'm going to randomize our snowflakes to make them more unique.
That's going to be fun.
This is going to be messy, am I right?
So,
to start with, let's add some inputs to our functions. What we'll do is we'll edit the blocks. And we're going to add two inputs. One of them called distance, if I can spell, and another called length. I'll just do the same for the other. I pressed cancel.
Oh.
That was silly. Distance.
Well, at least people get to see what you did again.
I guess. Length. I didn't press cancel that time. And I'll do the same for this. There we go.
Nice. Okay.
And now you'll see that some bubbles appear next to your calling, next to when you call the function, and up here.
And I guess we're going to use those where we've used flake size.
Yep. So
I guess we're going to drag flake size down into where we call these subarms. Well, flake size divided by 2 into the first one. Yeah, flake size divided by 4 into the next one.
There we go.
Cool.
But now we kind of need to,
fill them back in. Whoops.
Yeah. Because otherwise they're just going to move 10 steps, and I don't think that'll work.
Oh, okay.
So what we can do is we can drag distance.
Oh, I think you stuck that into the degrees there.
Whoops. That was silly. There we go.
Yeah.
And length. Move.
Nice.
And we'll do the same in here. Nice.
Right, and this won't look any different.
There we go. It won't do anything different.
But it means we can override them later.
Yep.
Cool. Okay.
What's next?
Well, now we want to get to the messy part, because you thought the last part was messy.
You wish.
Yeah.
Firstly, let's make our code even more neat so that it's easier to look at. And let's make another function and stick all of this repeat loop nonsense into it. Draw and run without screen refresh. We don't need any inputs for this one. It's not really going to change anything like before. Also,
cool.
I don't think I made it if I edit the...
Oh,
I didn't
you
press.
didn't tick that one. Yeah.
My bad.
Okay, cool. Well, good spotted. Well spotted.
Your mouse is shaky.
Okay, we want to drop that repeat into that. Yeah.
Bonk. There it is. And we need to call the function.
Again, not going to be different yet, but we're more set up and more in that call function.
Nothing changed. I'm gonna make it a little smaller. There we are. And now, what's next?
Oh, now it's time to do messy things with lists.
Let's go. Let's add a few variables. You'll see why in a minute. Distances.
Is that a variable or a list?
That's a variable.
Oops, that's a
It's
list.
supposed to be a list.
Yeah, that's supposed to be a list.
Whoops.
Subarm distances.
Can't spell anymore. I seriously can't spell anymore.
You got it.
There we
Okay.
go. First one.
And subarm lengths.
There we go. Now we've got two good lists. Let's just hide those so that we don't see them in front of our beautiful snowflake.
And as part of our setup, because we're going to randomize them, we want to delete all of each first and then add some random stuff into them.
Because we don't want to have the old
So,
like items. So we'll just do that. Subarm length.
and we can put that above our drawer.
Here.
That'll do.
Pretty good. Now
Now we want to add our randoms in.
yeah, we want to randomize it. So we'll add a random item to both of our lists. Sorry, this is difficult to word.
That's all good.
And I'll just duplicate that. We'll make that subarm length. And pop. Here we go.
Do we want to just quickly pop up our lists and show we're getting random stuff each time? Just a little bit of debug.
Yep, sure. Let's
So you
see.
show those and you run it. And we get a different random
6.
number in each. Yeah, and if we run it, we get different random numbers again, right?
10 and 3.
There you go. Random each time. Okay, we can hide those again.
Yep.
So I guess the big question is, we want to actually display these, right? How do we draw them?
Exactly. So now maybe instead of dividing by 2, we can divide by, let's say, item 1 of distances.
Nice.
And I think we'll do the same for lengths. Wait, where it says 4. This will just randomize it a bit more. And there we go.
Ah, cool.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Don't forget to save and test your code.
Good time to save and test.
Yep.
So each
There
time
we
we run
Look
them.
at that. Oh, wow. That's interesting.
So this is kind of a random snowflake,
But not quite.
but we're only using one item in each list, and we've made lists so we can do more than one item.
Mm-hmm. So
I guess we're going to add another variable to say how many in each list there'll be.
that's a good idea. Let's make a variable. Let's call it number of subarms. And number of subarms, or I'll just call it no subarms. Short number, because I'm not bothered to write the whole thing.
Cool.
There we go. And let's see what happens.
So we'll hide that, I guess.
Yeah, we'll hide it. I think we should repeat these, maybe, so that we have multiple different.
That right, but we want to set that
randoms.
subarm to the number of times we're going to repeat it, and we can repeat it a random number of times. So we get a random number of subarms as well.
Good idea.
So do you want to put in a set block first?
So to start with, let's set this. I can drag the block. Set number of subarms to pick a random. Let's keep it 1 to 10. Let's keep
1
it
to 10
simple.
will do, yeah. Cool.
And what about we grab a repeat until and drag that
For
around
this one,
there?
it's just a straight repeat, isn't it? Because we're just
Oh.
going to repeat that number of times. We're just adding in that number of items.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And let's drag the draw function out there. Maybe let's put that.
And repeat, and we want to put that variable into the number of times we repeat for.
Yep. There we go.
So now we're going to get random sizes in our lists. We're not drawing them yet. That's why we're only getting one. So drawing them's going to get a bit more interesting.
You thought the last bits were messy. We're going to say that a lot.
Cool. So I guess we need to edit our draw block. And we're also going to need a variable to actually index our list. So
the current number?
Yeah, so we call it current number subarm or current no subarm.
Yep.
Matching your same naming style.
Yeah.
And inside each subarm, we're going to have to loop through these. So inside the subarm, I think after that pen up, we can set it to 1.
After the pen up, we can set...
So the pen up inside the draw function.
Set or change?
So not subarm, sorry, inside the draw function. That pen up there, yeah, that one.
Set or change?
Set it to 1. We're setting it to 1 because scratch lists start at, or index starting at 1. So we want to start at the first item in the scratch list.
That's annoying. I placed it in the wrong area. There we go.
Oh, no, you've dragged those out of the loop as well.
That is mildly annoying.
Oh.
Okay, that I'm not doing well here. We'll put that in there.
And flake size needs to go the other side there as well. You got...
Oh, no.
Swap those two. Yeah.
It's chaos. This is really messy, am I right?
Okay, there we go. Oh, no, still.
Oh, come on.
Oh
no.
Can you control Z that?
No, apparently not. I tried control. Oh, I did control Z instead of command Z. All right.
Okay. You've got one extra flake size.
This is...
You get yourself in knots. There we go. That's it. There
we go.
there.
Okay,
Perfect.
we're done.
Right. So we've got to set this to 1.
Yep. Because scratch lists start at 1 instead of 0.
And that's going to be our index that we're going to count through and use using the list. So now we want in this repeat until block.
Yep. Now's the repeat until block.
Yeah. And we'll put this around those 2 blocks. We'll drop that 60 degrees out. Yeah, cool.
Repeat until current number subarm. I'm guessing this is to do with current number subarm and number subarm.
That's right. We want to repeat until it's greater than.
All right. So we'll get the greater than until current number subarm is
Greater than the number of subarms.
Yeah.
Yeah, put that in.
Great.
Not there. In the condition. And before we hit any run on this, hold on, because we've got to make sure we change it by 1. Otherwise, it'll loop forever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, put that in the variables. So if you manage to run it now and it's looping forever, you're going to need to hit the stop block.
There we go, like that.
That's it. Now that's going to draw 6, but it's going to draw the same 6. So it's only got item 1 in there in subarm left.
Oh, yeah.
So item 1 instead now for all 4 of those references needs to be item current no subarm.
There we go.
Yeah. Ooh. That's it. You got it.
Lock languages are hard to... Oh, whoops.
It's a bit uneven because we got one of the most only... Well, that's interesting. It's a slightly asymmetric snowflake.
That's one interesting snowflake.
Okay, so we hit it again.
And
now if we hit it, we now have a randomized snowflake. I mean, we can do a bit more, but I guess, again, questions in the chat, and is everybody where we are?
Yep.
Do we want to... I'll tell you what we'll do, just so people have a reference.
That's the wrong one.
I am going to go and share a working one, so everyone can see the... Yeah. In fact, I guess what we can do is we can share this one. So,
yeah, good idea.
Dojo Snowflake.
There we go.
And we will put it in the studio later. So we'll share that.
Beautiful.
And we're going to keep adding to it. But if I just pop that in and then someone can pop that in the chat for me. And we'll see inside.
For us.
For us, absolutely. Cool. Hopefully everybody's got this code this far, and we can now start getting a little fancier because we can make it a bit more snowflake now. So we're into some extension stuff. So the first thing I reckon is we can make it a bit prettier by putting the backdrop in.
Oh, yeah, good idea. Snowflakes aren't blue, are they?
Mm-hmm.
Unless
So
they're a
what
weird
backdrop
snowflake.
would be good?
Maybe a dark one. I know a good one. Stars. It's completely black. There we
Oh
go.
yeah. Oh,
Beautiful. Let's just
okay.
remove that. Goodbye.
Okay, but now it's blue, so we
Oh,
need
no,
to change
you
the
can't
color of the
see it.
snowflake. So if we go back to our sprite and the code.
What about we change it up here?
Yeah, okay, before we start drawing.
Yeah.
So in the pen area, there is a set pen color block.
Let's set it to white.
Yeah.
Saturation.
Put saturation all the way
0.
down and brightness all the way up. And we get a white. Yep.
There we go.
And press play again.
Hey, it's a bit white.
And now we have white snowflake.
It's really thin though. Let's make it bigger.
Oh, okay.
Pen
So there's a
size.
pen size. So
Set pen size, not
set
change.
pen size.
What about 3? 3 sounds good.
3 sounds great. Okay. Do you want to run that and see?
Let's see. Can we also save the code?
Yeah, now's a good place to save the code, which we also it's a good place for you to save the code, but it also means this now the extension stuff is in our shared version as well.
Yep. What about we get even more fancy with the line sizes?
Line sizes. Okay, so what's your idea?
What about we make it a little bit smaller for the sub arms?
Cool. So we can set. So why don't we move that 3? Okay, so 1 into the sub
I'll
arms.
put it here.
Yeah.
And 2.
And maybe put 3 on the outer drawer, because otherwise only the first line is going to be 3.
Outer drawer.
So inside the repeat 6, we put our set
yeah.
3.
Set pen to 3.
So there we go. Okay, well, how's that
How's
look?
that? You can't quite see it, but like.
Well, maybe we can make it 4 and 2. If we've got
Maybe.
3 and 2, make it 4 and 2.
4 and 2. If I can type.
Ooh, actually, probably need this one down in the 6 to change. Yeah, 4 and 2. There we go. That should make the difference a bit clearer.
There we go. Check out
Yeah.
that. You can see it. That's one really cool snowflake. Anything else we can add?
You had another quick improvement suggested to me.
Oh yeah. What about? Well, it's kind of just standing there on a single point. However many times you press it, it's always going to be in the same position, facing the same direction. So why not randomize it? Let's do this.
So you can turn a random direction before we start drawing anything.
Let's put it down here. Here?
Put it before the draw method.
Yeah, there we go.
Draw function. That's cool.
Well, if we randomize it from 0 to 90, that means we'll get random directions all the time.
I like it.
Let's see. On that direction. You can kind of see that it's changing direction each time. Anything more? Or is...
I think that is our extensions. So what we've done, we've created 2 lists and populated the random stuff.
Yep.
We've got these 3 functions. One is just a draw function to kind of separate the setup and draw. But then we're calling with the random stuff for our lists, these subarm functions.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get the random stuff repeated for each arm, which gives us our radial symmetry.
Yeah. Make it symmetrical. I think it's really good. Any questions? Anyone have any bugs?
So we can show you a couple of tips if you're stuck. Obvious one is you can go to your lists in the variables and turn on the lists and see what's in them. So can we just have a look at what's in our lists? I know it'll obscure the lovely snowflake, but
goodbye.
So you can see there length of 4, and if we hit play again, we can see how our lists length of 2, and different lists are going to create different snowflakes.
Oh my goodness, this one's long.
And you can see they're long because if you just turn off the lists, you can see the complexity of the snowflake underneath.
Wow.
So the longer the list, the more complex the snowflake is going to be.
If you wanted it to be extra complex,
you could make that a longer from 1 to 10 to 1 to 20, but every time you make that bigger, it'll also be a bit.
I'm going to try.
Oh, that's the length, not the list length. That's the arm length.
Whoops.
Yeah. I mean, that will make lengths that will go off the screen sideways somehow.
Oh my god. This one I'm guessing is 15, if we change that.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's not always going to pick
Hey.
15, but they get more complex.
yeah. Different each time.
So in the chat, does anyone have any questions? Are people all following along? I mean, again, let us know where you're at. And can someone post the dojo link in the because I think we've got a Scratch Studio for this.
Studio? for this?
Yeah, there's a
Really?
there's a studio.
Oh, you mean the CoderDojo Ham studio? Yes, I remember.
Let me see if I can find the studio.
There we go. You're following it.
Studios I'm following. Ham Coder Dojo.
That's
Right. Let's add that link in.
one of the last project I added is my one.
I'll add this project. Again, if I go to the project page, and if you go to the project page for yours and share it and copy the link for it, you can put it in the studio by adding it by URL yourself.
Yep. There we go.
There we go.
Someone
We've
put a
added ours into the
banner up.
studio.
That's nice.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I will share this other screen. Let's just stop that and share the other screen or the other tab so you can see adding it into the studio.
You can share a window. Would have been easier if we had just shared
There
a
we
window.
go. And so you can take your project and paste a link. There you go. Take your project and paste a link in here and add by URL. Now, it's not going to add it now because I've already added it once. It's taken it as Untitled 5, although we have called it Dojo Snowflake.
Maybe just refresh it. I forgot you're on a Mac and
So we've
control
called it
doesn't
that.
work.
Oh, I see. Command and R to refresh it.
Command and R.
Oh, look, we got another
Hey,
Snowflake
look,
Find
somebody.
Mask Keeper. Awesome.
Awesome. I thought for a minute nobody was watching.
Okay, that's really
Amazing.
cool. And we
That's
have, there we go.
Wow.
And we have a random snowflake.
That's great.
Nice.
Nice.
Okay, and we'll go back to the studio. Oh, there's a link for the studio there.
Yep.
Awesome.
So we can put a banner up
Has anyone got any other ideas for extensions or things we could do with this?
because we can have fun and do something for the next few minutes that we have. We finished quite early. We were expecting it to take a long time, didn't we?
I'm going to go back and I'm going to share our. Oh, well, actually, I don't need to go back there. I can go through here. I mean, these are just fun, by the way. Just clicking through the random snowflakes in these. I mean, because you just don't know what you're going to get, and it's just fun to tick through them and see them. I think what I am going to do is I'm going to go back to the studio and back to ours and put the code up so everyone can still see the code. So we can leave everyone with the code. Oh, it has called it Untitled 5 here.
Huh.
How odd. There, Dojo Snowflake. And we'll see inside.
And there's our code. Beautiful.
So maybe what we'll do is make sure everyone can see all of the code. It's a bit tricky because there's a fair amount of that. Oh, go on then. You position it because you're good with that. Ah, I see.
Because you put the sub arms together and you put the
draw next there. Yeah, that's a bit
there
tidier.
we go.
Okay, and we run it. I mean, we haven't changed it anyway. We're just going to get a different
anything.
snowflake each time.
Beautiful.
Oh, make it into a game. So when you click the snowflake, it gives you a point and disappears. Then another snowflake appears. Also include a leaderboard.
Oh,
that's an awesome
that's
idea. You know what? I'm going to make a note of that, and we can try the. So given we've got a few minutes now, a few minutes left, I will also make a game. Oh, what was it? It was.
It's up there.
When you click the snowflake,
gives you a point and disappears. That's a really good idea.
Okay. So what we could do if we say modify draw to take a size, so we can change the size of snowflakes, because maybe if we're going to want to make a game, we're going to make some big ones and small ones. I'm going to want to call draw more than once. It's going to get a bit trickier, but that's all right. We can do this.
Okay.
So
Put it into a function though.
So we have put it
Or a
into a
method.
function. Let's add a couple of parameters to draw then. So if you
Alright.
go to your blocks, oh yeah, you
I
can
can
edit the block
it
there.
straight from here.
Cool.
Edit.
So we'll add
Action.
some input. So we'll add an input that is size. I'm going to have to pass that down. And I guess the other two inputs is maybe we give it a X and a Y. And we can make those the center so we can put blocks in different places on the screen. Because if we're going to want to click them.
There we go.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Cool. We've got a few minutes left, I think.
Just mess around, tinker with it.
And so, right, let's put size. So let's start by putting flake size in up here in the call for it.
There we go. Plop inside.
And now that size, we're going to use that where we've got flake size in 4 places there.
You're going to use this size.
Yep.
Okay. Let's. Yeet. Goodbye.
And there's a 5th one here.
Oop. There we go.
And you maybe duplicate it 5 times. Oh, yeah. Or just drag it. Yeah, cool. Of course, you just got it there. Sorry, I wrong-footed you by saying duplicate. Just drag size around. Oh, there you go. All that.
Command Z, not control. Command.
Ah, yes. The way of the Mac.
That's, yeah, the way of the Mac. I'm a Windows user. You had to flip your.
I had to set my
Control.
mouse scroll wheel the other way up, right?
It says it's natural. It's not natural.
So this
though.
still won't be different because we're still using the same flake size. Is that right? So let's run it to make sure it still works.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, we'll come back to X and Y. But can we, instead of setting random, let's say flake size to 100, can we make it a random from 20 to 100 just so we can see it working with the
Flake
call?
size 20 to 100.
Yeah.
Let's see.
In fact, I'll tell you what, let's not use flake size. Let's just draw 20 to 100, put it straight into the function
Here.
in the first param, first input.
Oh, okay.
Because then we're actually using the function call instead to do it. Yep, 20
20
to
to
100.
100.
Yeah,
And
try
let's
that
see
and
what
we should see
happens.
it.
Tiny one. Tiny,
Yeah.
tiny one.
Big
Huge,
one.
Bigger one. I wonder if we can get a big
Oh,
one.
that's cool anyway, because we've got different sizes, right?
That's a good idea.
Okay, sweet. Which actually might mean that at this point, that variable flake size, well, we'll leave it for now, but it might be redundant. Right, X and Y.
What can we do with that? We can randomize it, maybe?
Yeah.
But then it always sends
so-
it to. I think
0,
we need to
0.
replace that. right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But hold on, before you replace that, notice that our 2 functions also have X and Y at the top. So we
Yep.
might need to add the X and Y into that. That's not going to work, is it?
It's not.
Aye.
Wait. Let's see. Let's see.
Well, actually, yeah, I guess you could always put it at 1010 to see if it does anything strange. I don't know what that means when you've put the function across. Okay. So if you set that first X and Y to say 1010, is it going to treat those as zeros or is it going to move the whole lot?
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's not going to work. So what we're going to need to do is let's take the first sub left arm, edit it, and add an X and Y input to it. Parameter input, same diff, I guess.
X.
Yeah, Y.
X. You know why. You know why.
And do the same for the other one. Yeah.
X. Y.
Yeah.
Bonk.
You're
There we
going to
go.
have to drag them apart because they're overlapping.
There we go.
All right,
That's it.
cool. And if you run that,
It's still
Oh.
using the wrong XY.
oh, because we haven't set them in this, we haven't passed them in here.
Oh.
So those were fine. So, oh, I see
What?
what you mean.
No. There was a XY.
I don't think it matters. I think it's just, so I think if we just drag those in, they'll be fine. But we've got to drag them in up there too.
Ugh. Command Z. I'm
Yeah.
going to be stuck with Apple things for the rest of my day.
Okay, and if we go up to these 2 up here, because we aren't calling them there, so it's not that. I get why you thought it might be that, but
It might be.
it might be. You might have a point. There is a difference
Possibly.
between variable reference, I suppose.
Fair.
So if you go across to the right here, yeah, we need it in those
Oh.
two. Yeah,
These ones or these ones?
those ones.
Those ones.
Those top ones.
You're
Yeah.
extremely specific, man. Hold on. Oh, it's all just pink. Pink.
No.
Wow.
Okay, right. And now they should draw together. Let's try that again. See if they draw together. Yeah. All right. Let's go back to our main and randomize those.
Oh, this is amazing. Thank you for the idea. That's a great idea.
We've got 10 minutes left, so we can 1
Can't
to 10, and I reckon we make that.
A lot more.
So we want to say that's something like minus 30 to 30 might be good.
50.
Okay,
I'm
might be half off screen, but let's try that.
Well, when you live with me, you're gonna like.
Okay, hit the
Get
play
crazy
button, see what we
things.
get.
We thought our last things were messy.
Oh, so if we keep hitting play, it'll be randomized in its position. Oh, look
Hey,
at that.
that's amazing.
Okay. Now, at the moment, they're all going to be the same because we've only got one list. But I reckon this is cool. This is really nice.
actually
Okay. So what about we do another repeat block around the turn and draw?
Mhm.
Is where we find out if our...
If our code is really.
so not an if block, a repeat block.
They all look the same. I don't
Let's
really
just do a repeat n, not a repeat until. Yeah, that one.
repeat.
Okay.
There we
Yeah,
go.
and make that. Let's make it. Well, make it 10 for now. That'll do.
Yeah, good.
Oh no, not 50.
No, I put 500
Now
in
it'll
10.
draw a bunch of snowflakes, and they probably end up on top of each other. Ooh.
Oh.
So maybe
Oh,
50
they're all
to
not
minus.
random.
Yeah, so make that 50 to 50 bigger. Then make that. Should we make that the full size then? 100. Well, 200 by 200, but it might. Yeah, try it. And minus 200 means some will be half off the screen.
200. They're all the same.
Well, they will be because we're not randomizing the two lists, are we? Make the other one 200 to 200 as well, by the way, so we get the Y.
Are you sure it's 200 for that one though?
Yeah, minus 200 to 200.
There we go.
I don't think it'll... Will it work that way up? Yeah, it'll work that way up. There we go. I reckon we need to bring that size down instead of 100. Maybe make it 5 to 50. So we give us... Make the small side 5 so we can get even dinkier ones. So it's generating the one snowflake list, but now it's doing it...
Do we want to maybe make different snowflakes? this time? That might be difficult but fun.
Well, okay, so if we move the delete in...
Wait, what would happen if we did this and then put this in here?
Up there, yeah, okay.
What would happen here?
It might take a while to draw them.
No, it didn't.
Okay. Okay, so now we've got a smattering of snowflakes. I think that's advancement. That's cool. I don't know how we make them clickable because they're not sprites. Does the pen block have anything we can do a capture with?
Wait. What you could do is when touching color, because they're all white. So when touching color white.
Right, and that could
work.
add a point. Okay. So have you got a when click button?
When events.
When
sprite clicked, where you could do when blah.
When I receive, is there not a when button pressed? Oh, I see, but you got this sprite. Okay, so when sprite clicked will be nice because the whole. Oh, I don't know actually.
No, the sprite is the cat.
Oh, how would we do the sensing clicked? Okay, all right. Okay,
I got it. Or no, and it must be and.
So when what mouse button blah is down and touching white, I guess that's touching mouse pointer.
Oh, that's.
We want a mouse button thing, don't we? I guess.
Mouse click. Mouse down.
Mouse down, yeah.
But the backdrop kind of has white bits at the back, so I'm just gonna like cover it with black.
Okay.
With darkness.
You could just make a fresh new canvas. It might be easier than trying to paint this dark.
No, I will. There we go. Easy.
There we go.
Paint it black.
Excellent.
Okay. Well, we got somewhere.
Okay, so it's
what
black and
we
we got white bits, and we're going to do an if.
do we do a score?
We have a few minutes left.
Let's make a score. Fun.
Score, okay. So we're going to have a little forever loop, and then when it's clicked, score +1.
I forgot to put the forever loop.
That's all right. So you put the forever loop around there.
And let's put the score. Let's make it change by
1. And at the beginning of the forever loop, do you want to set it to 0 so so then they get a new fresh game?
Yep. And then should we make? Oh, we can't make them disappear though. That's the problem.
This is tricky. I don't know how we make it disappear. And they're not randomly moving down the screen either, so they are just.
We could make them move down the screen for a minute.
Oh
my god. I think this is insane.
Oh, because you haven't got a sleep. So why don't we put a weight, or can we make it? Yeah.
Wait one second. We haven't done any music-y things in this.
Oh, okay. All right. So 5 minutes. We haven't really worked out what we're going to do to make them clickable. But you said music.
Music.
Okay. Can we put some seasonal music? Does Scratch have seasonal music?
I don't know. I haven't been in the sound library for a while. Because I use my own music.
You got music.
Oh my god. I forgot that if you hover over them, it will play.
Loops and notes, maybe?
Loops. Notes is just like piano notes. No, I don't see anything Christmassy.
I remember us getting a...
That I imported that.
Oh, okay. We haven't got any...
Sad music.
Well, I mean, that would be nice, but, you know...
I don't think it will work for a very high, like, a very fun Christmassy snowflake thing.
Oh, okay. So we can't quite... I don't think the cat sound makes sense.
Meow.
Can I play with the music?
Sure, go for it. You love music.
I love music.
Who doesn't?
We're
kind of going off topic here, but why not?
We're getting into fun stuff. What's this? I don't think it's that. Oh, that'll do. We can put that in. And
let's break it. Let's break our ears.
And we'll take the weight there. We're completely like off. Yeah, we're just
doing us.
Okay, change the score. There we go. And now when you click on a snowflake,
it sounds like an annoying ringtone from people who have smartphones and don't have Nokia bricks.
No. So we've got it random each time. I mean, it would be also cool to make them, I guess, to make them go down the screen. The only problem is if you look at the speed at which it's drawing them, it takes a while to draw them.
Wait. Maybe I didn't. Wait, let me edit this. Did I put the thing that I... Oh, I did.
They are all running without screen refresh.
Yeah.
So
we do this.
There must be... I suspect we're running out of time to be able to do this. But you've all got a link to the studio. And if you can think of more ways to make it more gamey, to make them disappear, to make them rotate, or to make them drop down the screen, plop your ideas into the studio. I look forward to seeing your ideas.
Oh my God.
Okay. If you don't break it, that's all right.
If I don't break it, since when is that ever the case? Since when do I not break things?
I think we're happy with this, and I think we need to now hand over for more Advent of Code and more Scratch to Richard.
Yeah. You're on mute.
He's muted.
Thank you. Good. Hi, Danny. Hi, Phoebe. How are you? That was great.
We're great.
Really, I thought those snowflakes were amazing, and I loved your free play at the end there, which is, to me, the best part of Scratch, right? Is what else you can do to customize things. That was great.
Fine.
Cool.
Right. I'll see you later.
See you later.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so I'm going to be the top layer in the Advent of Code sandwich. And following on from Danny and Phoebe, we're going to look at how you can use Scratch to solve Advent of Code problems. So to start off with, you're going to need to just get a brand new Scratch project up and running. And then we need to really pick a challenge to solve. So earlier along, we looked at a really cool challenge around passports. I think this time I'm going to go back to last year. And as you can see here, I've signed into Advent of Code with my Code Club account. I'm going to go to the 2021 challenges. So if you click on events and then click on 2021, you'll see all the challenges. Sorry, not 2021, 2020, be last year, 2020. You'll see all the challenges that are available for last year's challenge. I'm just going to pick the first one because although Scratch is super powerful, it maybe isn't powerful enough to do some of the more advanced challenges, but some of the ones at the start are definitely possible to be tackled with Scratch. So let's have a look at this first challenge. There's some information here. It's saying, after saving Christmas 5 days in a row, you've decided to take a vacation at a nice resort on a tropical island. Surely Christmas will go on without you. And then there's some information here about needing to collect your gold stars as normal. In this case, starfish stars. But here's our challenge. Before you leave, the elves in accounting just need to fix your expense report, which is going to be your puzzle import. Apparently something isn't quite adding up. Specifically, they need you to find the two entries that sum to 2020 and then multiply those two numbers together. And as ever with the Advent of Code, there's an example. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers here. And our challenge is to find which two of those, if you add them together, equals 2020. So obviously we're going to have a much longer list to solve. And at the bottom here, it says to begin, get your puzzle input. So if we click on that, here's a huge list of numbers. So within these numbers, we've got to find which two of them add up to 2020. Now, if I was going to tackle this just without a computer or a computer program to help me, what would I have to do? Well, I'd have to take the first number, add it to the second number and see if that was equal to 2020. And if it wasn't, I'd try the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one, and the next one. And then when I got all the way down to the bottom of the list, if that hadn't worked, I'd then have to take the second one at the top and try that against them all. So a really long-winded, tedious process, something that's great to automate with a computer. So first of all, when you've got your puzzle input, we need to save that. So if you right-click on it on most of your browsers and find the Save As button, we can save that there. And I'm going to call it, because it's day one, I'm going to call it day1_input. I'm going to need that in a minute. Now, what I also want to do is to save this test data, because when I run my program, I don't want to have to go through all of those numbers in case my program doesn't work first time, because then it might never finish, or I might not be able to easily see what it is. With the test data, I know that it's going to work properly for me, because I've also been told what the solution is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this data here, and then on my Mac, and I'm not sharing my screen for that, but I'm going to save it into just a notepad file. If you're using a Windows machine, sorry, a text edit file. If you're using a Windows machine, you'd save it using text edit. I'm just going to save that data into a plain text file that I can use later. In fact, I'm going to call it day1_test. Now, let's go back to our Scratch window, which is where we need to start. So I don't really like the cat. Let's get rid of that. This is an Advent of Code challenge. It's a festive challenge. So I feel like I need a slightly more festive background. Let's have a look. What have we got? Oh, there we go. Look, winter. That's nice. And I do want to make this a bit of a graphical thing to use. So I'm going to have some sprites in there. And I think what I'll do is, as we're trying to get some stars, I'm pretty sure there's a star sprite. So I'm going to find the star sprite. It really helps if I spell star correctly. There we go, star. I'm going to add one of those in, and then just maybe mess with the costume a second. So I'm going to duplicate the costume. Actually, no, I won't. I think I'm going to use these stars as buttons for each different part of the challenge. So if I click on the text button, I'll add in some text. So I'm going to just put a nice purple one there. Great. And then now I'll duplicate this one. And then I'm going to also just recolor this yellow star to be a different color, just so that I can have some indication that things are finished. So there we go. That's my star for part 1. I'm going to plonk that down the bottom there. Next thing I need to do is to get that data that we need to work with into Scratch. And that's actually really easy to do in Scratch, amazingly easy, in fact. In the last Snowflake project, they were using lists, which are super easy and useful in Scratch. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to create a list, and I'm going to call this first list test. I'm going to use the test data with it. And you can see here, I've now got an empty list. In order to add in the data that I've already saved, I can right-click on import and then find my file. And you can see here, here's the one I called day1_test. Input that, and there you go. I've now got that data in a list in Scratch. Obviously, there's only 6 values there, so I could have just typed those in manually, but I didn't think I could be bothered to do that, so I did it that way. And also, when we come to the big list of our actual data, we'll need to do that. We won't be able to type all those in. So let's go back to what we said before. We're trying to find which of these 2 numbers add up to 2021. In fact, in our Advent of Code puzzle, it tells us that it's the first number, 1721, and the 4th number, 299, because they add up to 2020. So I just need to verify that and find out how to do that. Like I said before, the way I would do it manually is to check each one in turn. So that sounds like I'm going to need some kind of loop to do that. First of all, though, we need to work out how we can actually take these values. And using lists, that's really easy. We can say item something of test. And I'm obviously going to need 2 of those because I need to multiply 2 together. So I would have item 1 and item 2 of test. But I want to automate this, and I want these values to constantly change. So I think I'm going to need some variables. So in fact, I'm going to create 2 variables. I'm going to call the first one index 1, which is going to be the first number that's going to be tested. And then I'm going to create a second one called index 2. So when I go through checking all these numbers, I can use those to keep track of where I am in the list. So let's say, so I have index 1 in there and index 2 in there. And I'm going to need to add those together, aren't I? So let's go to our maths blocks and find the plus. There it is. Let's drag those in there. There we go. So I've added those together. And then I'm going to need to see if they equal 2020. So let's drag out the equals sign, plonk that test in there. And then that just needs to, instead of saying that, say 2020. Great. So now we've got the basis of the test we need to do. So because it's a test, I probably need to have an if statement in there. In fact, I'll probably need to do 2 things. So let's have an if, then, and else. If I drag that in, that's what I'm going to be checking. If index 1, if the first number, whatever it is I pick, say that one plus that one equals 2020, then we do something. So because we're going to go through these in a logical order, I think we need to set some starting values for index 1 and index 2. That feels like the next thing to do. So I'll do that as well. I'll get 2 of these out, and I'm going to work out what they should start as. Well, the first one, let's say index 1 should be the first number. And as we again saw in that great Snowflake project earlier, lists start numbering at 1. And then the second number I want to check, so index 2, is going to be starting at 2. Great. So that feels quite nice. What am I going to do if I find a number that does it? If I find the answer? Well, let's store that in another variable. So I'm going to call it part 1 answer. That'll be my variable. So if I find 2 numbers that added together equal 2020, I will set my part 1 answer variable to be this sum. I can just duplicate that there. I love duplicate Scratch. Copy that in. Great. If when I've checked the 2 numbers it doesn't equal 2020, I want to go on to check the next one. So let's say we work through it this way. We start with number 1, which is 1721. Then I'm going to check it against 979. If those two numbers don't equal 2020, I'm going to keep working with 1721, and then I'm going to check it against 366, and then 299, and then 675. So my index value for item 1 is going to stay the same, but this second one needs to change each time. So every time we don't find the right answer, I want to change index 2 by 1. There we go. We feel like we've got the basis of the loop there. I mean, how many times will I need to do those checks? Well, let's see. I need to add it to 1 number, 2 numbers, 3 numbers, 4 numbers, 5 numbers. Okay, 5. I could manually put that in a repeat loop, couldn't I? But then again, my actual list of data that I need to solve Advent of Code has a lot more than 5 in. So I don't want to use 5. 5 is the number of items on the list minus 1, isn't it? So I think that will probably be how many times we need to make the change. So we can pull out the length of test, and then let's just take that. Where's minus? There we go. So we'll say we need to repeat that length of test minus 1 times. And how do I trigger this? Well, I'm going to just trigger it by clicking on my star. And I've created all this code under the star variable. So I can just say, when this sprite clicked, repeat 5 times, go through and check those answers. So look, what happens if we run that now? Let's just click on the sprite and find out. Well, I don't really know. Is stuff happening? It's hard to tell, isn't it? It's all happening really quickly. If we were using Python, we probably use a line to print out what's going on. So the same sort of thing we can do in Scratch is to use a say line. We can get our say what's going on. So let's say we probably want to use some joining of strings here. Let's join together, not apples and bananas. We'll join together 3 things. So first of all, we'll join together the word times, and then we want to show the first item we're testing and the second item we're testing. And so now if we run it, we should see. Sorry, I just click on it, start it overnight. There we go. Oh, nothing's happening. Well, it checked the first number and it didn't go on. What's going on? Okay. So even though I'm repeating my loop 5 times, I'm doing the same thing every time. So I need, when I get to the end of the loop, to change the index by 1, which I am doing. So why is it not going on? Let's have a look and see what's happening. I'm saying that. I'm repeating it so many times. My project just auto-saved, which is good. Remember to save yours as you go along. If I click on it there, I do the first thing, and then I think it happens. I can see my problem. I've put the set values inside the repeat loop. So every time I go through it, I'm setting at the start them to the same value. Those need to be outside the repeat loop. There we go. That should now loop through. Let's see if that's fixed it. Yeah, now we're going on. We're checking the second number, the third number. Oh, and look, our part 1 answer has changed because we know the Advent of Code question told us which 2 numbers it was that added 2020, and we found our answer. Actually, if we go back to the instructions, the answer we need isn't 2020 because that would be the same for everyone. We need to multiply together the 2 numbers that produce 2020 when added together, and that should equal 514579. So let's instead of printing out the 2 values added together, let's get rid of that add and replace it with a multiply. And then plonk that back. No, I did the wrong one, didn't I? I didn't want to change that at all. How many undos can I do to get that back? That many. I want to do is to change this one, because this is where I store the answer. Get rid of that plus sign, make that negative, make that multiply, and then that's the thing we need to store into our answer variable. So let's just run this again. I should probably also set the part 1 answer to be 0 at the start. Otherwise, it will just remember the answer from previous sessions. Okay, click it through every 2 seconds. There we go. We got answer, and that matches the answer that we said there, 514579. Great. So that looks like on the test data it's working. But hang on a minute. This test data was really easy because the 2 numbers were in the first set. If you started with the first number and then just check it against all the others, we'd have found the answer. However, if it had been, say, these 2 numbers, then that wouldn't have worked because we'd never have checked adding those 2 together. So I think our code isn't yet complete, even though it does find the answer with our test data. After we've checked the first number added against all the rest, if we haven't found the answer, we then need to take the second number and add that against all the remaining numbers. So we'll need a second loop to do that. So let's, I think we can basically just duplicate what we're doing here almost. So let's grab a second repeat loop and drop it around there. How many times are we going to need to do this? Well, it's the same, isn't it? If I'm going through it, yeah, I need to do it the same number of times. So we can repeat that. I think we lost a thing in there, didn't we? There we go. Look, when I dragged that in, this is an annoying thing about Scrap sometimes, the -1 didn't go into this loop here. So let's put that in, get rid of that and duplicate this. There we go. So let's make that a bit bigger so everyone can see it. Let's have a look. So now we'll do that. But then when we get to the end of this list, after we've added 1,721 to all of these, we need to move on to add in 979 to the remaining ones. So at that point, we need to change our index 1 to move it on as well. So outside of the first repeat loop, but inside the second one, we need to change index 2 by 1 to make that move on. And then, of course, we'll also need to set index 2 back to being 0 again, because we need to go back to the start of the list. But actually, we don't want it to go back to the start because we've already checked that one. So we can just set it to be the next number after index 2. So let's set index 2, and then that will be the first index plus 1. Is that right? I think that's right. Yeah. So let's just run that through and see if that works. So we're scrolling through. My thing is not working on. What have I made a mistake in here somewhere? We're changing index 2 by 1. We're changing in. Look, there we go. That should be index 1. That's a mistake. Let's try again. Now we jumped on too quickly there, didn't we? So now we haven't found our right answer. So there's still a mistake in here somewhere. Let's have a look and see if we can work out what's gone wrong. It's probably to do with these ending conditions here. Let's see. We change our second index by 1, which is correct if we don't move on. And then, oh, hang on. I know. Look, I'm inside the wrong loop. There we go. Let's try now. There we go. That's looking better. Yep, we checked against that one, that number, found the answer. And now we're carrying on through the list. This time started with 979. And then we should move on to 36. Oh, now we had an extra one there. So I think we've gone on too far, but I don't think that matters. Great. Okay, so I think we're good now. I just want to make some other changes so we can see when we get to an answer, let's first of all, because remember we've created 2 costumes for our button, a yellow one and a green one. So let's, at the start, we'll set our costume start off with to make sure we start on the yellow one. And then when we get a right answer, so we can see it more easily than the variable appearing, we'll change, oops, we'll switch to star 2. Let's just check that works out with the test data still. So it's starting off yellow, and then when it goes through, yeah, it goes green. So that gives us a good indication that we solved our problem. Now we just need to bring in our real data and see if we get the answer out. So, I'm going to create another list, this time called, well, let's call it expenses, because that's what we're supposed to be working on here, right? Our expenses. And I can do import again. And this time I'm going to grab the import file we had before. I know we've got a big long list on there. Let's have a look and check. Right, so it's obviously found a blank line at the end there. We don't want an empty entry, so we'll delete that. So we know we've got 200 numbers to go through. Now, at the moment, our code is working on the test lists. We just need to change all of these to say expenses. It's a shame in Scratch you can't use a variable as the name of a list in these boxes. I think if I was doing this and had more time, I might make a little helper function that loaded the data into different lists. But that should work. Okay, let's go. Let's put across the green flag. Right. No, hang on. I didn't really think that through, did I? So at the moment, it's taking 2 seconds to check every number. So that'll be 400 seconds. I don't think I want to sit through all that. Let's just stop that. So for now, let's set that to 0 seconds. Will that be quick enough? Let's see, that should really whiz through now. Yeah, there we go. That looks quite good. It's still only doing the first number. We can verify that it's scrolling through them correctly, but that's still too slow because we've got 200 of those to watch. So let's just carefully take the whole thing out, and we'll just have to trust that our program works. Let's go. Oh, look, without printing anything out, it solves it almost automatically there. We've got a solution in anyway that we think our number is. So let's have a look. Just make that full screen for a second, shall we? Yeah. So we're saying it's 918339. We think is the answer. 918339. So if we go to our Advent of Code thing, what was it? 918339. Let's see if that's the right answer. Yes, hooray! We got a gold star. We're closer to saving our vacation. So now we can continue on to part 2, which is normally, as we saw with Aya's first Advent of Code challenge at the start of this session, normally a bit trickier. Let's see what we've got to do. First half of this puzzle is complete. It provides 1 gold star. Part 2, the elves in accounting are thankful for your help. One of them even offers you a starfish coin they had left over from a past vacation. They offer you a second one if you can find 3 numbers in your expense report that meet the same criteria. So that's 3 numbers that, when added together, add up to 2020. And using the test example again, the 3 entries that sum to 2020 are 979, 366, and 675. Yes, that adds up to 2020. And multiplying them together produces that answer. Okay, right. So that doesn't sound too hard. We know the process we need to follow to do that, don't we? I'm just going to put that back in there now so I don't forget where it goes. Let's have another button for part 2. We can leave this code as it is. So let's duplicate that sprite. I just want to be neat and tidy, so I'm going to edit its costume and change that to. I still want to be a purpley color. Put in here. Text. There we go. Change that to 2, and then do the same thing here. Change that 2. Great. So we know we've got another button that says 2 there, and we know that a lot of our code, because we duplicated it, we've got all the code working for part 1 there. We just need to think now about how we can change that. Well, I think it should be fairly straightforward because we're just doing the same process, but instead of adding in two numbers together, we need to add in 3, but we know the routine for doing it. We just check them all in a big sequence. So let's see what we need to do to add in to make this coat with 3 numbers. Well, first of all, we're going to need another index, aren't we, for the third number that we add in. So let's create a variable index 3. What else? We need a variable to store the answer in. So let's have part2 answer as well. And we know that we need to set these at the start. It's always good in any program to set your start conditions. So we'll set index 3. Well, if we're looking at these numbers, the first thing we'll do is we'll add in our test data 1721 to 979 to 366. So our index 3 will start at 3, the third number. And we'll also set our part2 answer to also be 0. Right. Now, we're also going to need a third loop then, aren't we? Because this time we're going to check those 3 numbers together, but our sum's also different, right? So let's just modify that slightly. Let's just take that out so it's easier to do. We're going to need another plus because we need to add in another addition to it. Drag that in there like that. Put that back. And we need to duplicate our item index 2 of expenses, put that in and make it, no, get rid of that and make it index 3. It's going to be our third number. While I'm here, before I forget, I'm going to change all these back to say test, because we'll check our program on the test data first to make sure that it gives us the right answer. Yeah, I think a little helper function to reload the data from one list to another will be helpful. There is no copy list though, is there? No, there is no copy list. So we'll have to do it the manual way. There we go. So that's the test we need to make now. And let's also change our kind of printout statement. I'll need another join, won't I? Another join that goes there. And actually I need 2 more joins because I need to join, make it print out nicely. I'll make that one say the word times, and then here, so again, we'll need the third variable from our list. And that should be what it prints out as it goes through. And finally, our solution isn't just 2 numbers added together, it's 3. So we'll need to do the same thing again, added in that third term. So although this is fiddly, a bit messy, as Phoebe would say, it's pretty easy to do. We're just following the same pattern each time. We're just adding in a third value to our thing. Go, and I can put that back into, where does that go in there? Yeah. And this should be part 2 answer, shouldn't it? Rather than part 1 answer. Okay, right. So now I think it's time to try and add in our third loop. So it should just really be another loop that wraps around our existing loops here. So if I can get a repeat loop, I'll drop that in. If anyone, of course, has any problems in the please shout out in the chat and we'll try and help you. You can always put your Scratch program into the studio we had before so people can look at it and try and work out what's going on. Okay, we need to add in how long we're going to do it for. So we'll stick with the same thing. I think we can actually make these shorter. There's some duplication in what we do here. We're testing numbers we've already tested, but really we saw how quickly the program runs. I don't think we need to bother about that. We can maybe try and optimize that at the end. This time, so we've changed index to index 1. I think let's try and make it consistent with the way we did it before. So if we start off on our list, we'll do 1271 times 979 times 366, and then we'll keep 1271 979 the same and move on to 299. So that's our index 3. So we'll just change the inner loop there to be index 3, which means we should change this to be index 2, and then this needs to be index 3, and that will also then need to be index 2. just following the logic we used before. Oh, that's dropped out there. Why does that not want to go in there? Am I picking up the wrong thing? There we go. And now we'll need to follow the same logic again in this last loop here. So let's duplicate what we've got in, put that in there. And so now we'll need to say, this time we'll need to change index 1 by 1. We'll still need to set index 3 to index 2 plus 1. And we'll also need to do, let's put it in there to be nice and neat. We'll also need to change index 2 this time. I'm glad I left that one there, to index 1 plus 1. There we go. I think that might work. Let's just have a quick scan through. I think we can. I'm happy to try and give it a go. We're running against we've got all the test data correct. We've changed them all to test. We've changed that to part 2 answer. Let's just put our answers up here to make it a bit neater, and our indexes here so we can see those changing. And then if I click button 2, we should see something happening, maybe. Let's see. Part 2 answer is false. Why is it false? Oh, look, because look what I did there. Silly person. I didn't pull out the plus. I pulled out an equals. So we're not doing an equals, are we? We want a multiply. I grabbed that one. I should have grabbed that. There we go. Let's put that. Hopefully you were all paying more attention than I was, and you did grab. This is where it gets really fiddly, isn't it? Dragging multiple things around. Let's get that in there, like that. And then, where do I need to grab it to drag the whole thing? There. That's right. Okay, let's try and run that again this time. Hang on, that's part 1 answer is working. Why is part 1 answer changing? I should be doing part 2. I shouldn't be changing part 1 answer at all. I don't understand. I've been look what I've been doing. I've been changing the code to part 1 rather than part 2. Right, how do I fix that quickly? I can just change these numbers, right? Let's just make this now say 2. That's silly. Problem with having sprites that look the same. Let's make that to 2, and then make this one 1. Okay, and then swap them over, just make them left and right. So part 1 is now solving part 1. That has all the thing in, great. And now part 2, I should try it, has given us a big number very, very quickly. Let's just check on start to see what the code. That number it gave us was 241861950. Is that the right answer from here? 241861950. Great. So it's working with our test data. That's good news. Let's go back and swap in our real data then. So all we have to do is just slightly tediously change all of these tests to expenses. And this feels like a manual process, and the reason we write computer programs is to do these things for us. So I don't like this at all. Let's just slide along there. Expenses. Right. So now if I press button 2, it's running through. Now that's still running quite quickly, isn't it? That's because I've still got the say loop in, which I don't really want because that slows everything down. Let's run it without that in. Yeah, it's rattling through more quickly now. Why is it stopping at that point? Right, let's have a look. And it stopped, but it didn't set part 2 answer. I think it found an answer there. Let's just stop that. If I click on it, yeah, it started off yellow, and then eventually it got to a point that was green, but it didn't change the part 2 answer variable. There you go, it's finished. And looking at those, why is it not actually printing out my answer? Have I still got this messed up somehow? Yes, there, I think that's why. This is a bit messed up. Part 2 answer needs to be item 1 of expenses, multiply. This is how we look at multiply. I got they are multiply symbols, aren't they? Multiplied by item 2, multiplied by item 3. Okay. So why isn't that showing up there? Let's have a look. I'm setting part 2 answer to that. Setting part 2 answer to be. Grab the wrong thing again. Let me try and run again, see if it stops this time. I'm pretty sure that's it finding the answer, but why isn't that set part 2 answer working at that stage? That's very odd. I set it outside of the loop. Ah, there we go. You've got part 2 answer in there now. Okay, maybe it just took time. So 23869440. 23869440. 23869440. 23869440. See if that's right. Yes, the right answer. Hooray! So we've now got 2 gold stars. If I go back to my calendar, I can see I've got 2 gold stars there. So we've successfully solved 2 parts of an Advent Code program using Scratch. One thing I really feel like I need to do before we finish though is to make the changing of all those expenses things a bit easier. So I'm going to just create myself a little helper tool here, finally. So if anyone's working along and wants any help, just stick some comments into the chat. I'm going to choose a sprite. I want something helper, so maybe like, I know, magic wand. That would be quite useful to have. Let's have a magic wand sprite on there. And I'm going to write some code for that. So what do I want it to do? Well, basically, I think I want to have another list, which I would call run. That will be the one I'll always work against. And then in all my things here, and this will be the last time I'll have to change these, I can change all of these to be run. I'm going to do it with part 1 to start off with as a test. And then basically what I want to do is when I've finished with the test data, I can copy it into the run list and use it there. And then when I've finished, I can copy the expense data in and use that. So let's say when this sprite is clicked, what I want to do, I want to delete everything that's in the run list. So I get an empty one. And then I'll need some sort of variable because I'm going to do some looping and I want to keep track of myself. So let's have a variable, I call it loop. And I'll want to set that variable to 1, which would be the first item in the list. And then I can repeat how many times? Well, however many. Let's just write this tool now, which is going to copy all the expenses things in. So let's repeat, length of expenses time. We'll add the item number loop variables, item number loop to expenses, and then we'll just increment, we'll change that by 1. Change loop by 1. So if I now click on my magic wand, Yeah, actually, I can do. I can copy things into the lists. So I could create another magic wand to copy the test data in once I've done it. Let's just check that process works. I'll just delete everything out of run, start with. No, delete all of run I want to do. Let's delete all of run. There we go. And then I could import in my test data. And then when I want to move over to try the expenses data, I can just click my magic wand and it's changed. Great. I'm really pleased with that helper tool there. And so I think that's about the end of solving this challenge, Advent of Code. So if anyone has any questions, chuck them into the chat. I can't see any problems right now. Maybe people are still working through it. Let's just hang on a second, see if anyone's got any questions about it. Otherwise, I think we can call things to a close. I don't know if Peter's there, wanted to jump in. I'll say hello. I can see Dan is still around. I should just say, if you are interested in Advent of Code, as Aya mentioned at the beginning, we have produced some movies that really give you an introduction, and they're all on our YouTube channel. So if you go to this shortened link there, rpf.io/CoderDojo Ham YouTube, you'll see a number of videos that we've produced. I can actually do that right now to show those, couldn't I? CoderDojo Ham, CoderDojo Ham YouTube. Okay, and as you can see, there's our live stream that we're on now, and then there's two videos here, Advent of Code. The first one talks you through basically how you get set up on Advent of Code, how you register, how you find all the puzzles. And then the second one tackles one of the puzzles in a really sort of step-by-step way, almost in the same way as we've done today. So if you're interested in more Advent of Code, I'd really suggest having a look at those. There's a third movie on the way that's going to look at another challenge. I think what we might do actually is tackle this same challenge that we've just looked at this afternoon together in using Scratch, but instead using Python. Okay, so I think there's also, before we go, just some final piece of good news, which is we are looking really hopeful that we're going to be able to start face-to-face sessions back in Kingston University in the new year. So it'll be really wonderful to be able to do some coding with everyone in the great STEM Centre in Kingston University. And I've got some great physical computing projects lined up that we can hopefully take and use there. So I think if there's no other comments or anything in the chat, it's time to say goodbye. I don't know if Danny and Phoebe want to come back on and wave goodbye to everyone. There you go. Right.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye. Bye.